For nearly 30 years, a shadow hung over the small city of Montpelier, Vermont. A brutal crime that seemed destined to remain a mystery, a ghost haunting the community. But in 2022, everything changed. Today, we read diving into the shocking story of the 1993 murder of Lynn Schultz and the incredible breakthrough that finally brought a killer to justice. It was March 6, 1993. Lynn Schultz, a vibrant 45-year-old nurse known for her compassion and dedication, was found dead in her apartment on Barr Street. The scene was grim. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The news sent a wave of fear and disbelief through Montpelier, a city where such violent crimes were almost unheard of. Lynn was a well-respected figure at the Central Vermont Medical Center. She was a mother, a friend, a beloved member of the community. Who would do something so horrific to her? Investigators immediately launched a full-scale inquiry. They interviewed dozens of people, friends, family, neighbors, and colleagues. They canvassed the area, searching for any clue, any witness, any piece of information that could point them in the right direction. The crime scene was meticulously processed. Investigators collected DNA evidence, hoping it would lead them to the perpetrator. But this was 1993. DNA technology was still in its relative infancy. While they had the killer's genetic fingerprint, the databases and techniques we have today simply didn't exist. They had the what, but not the who. The initial investigation was intense. Several individuals were looked at, some more closely than others, but one by one, they were cleared. Alibis checked out, and their DNA didn't match the sample from the scene. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the trail grew cold, leads dried up. The initial public outcry faded into a quiet, persistent ache for Lynn's family and the community. The case file, thick with reports and dead ends, was eventually placed on a shelf, becoming one of Montpelier's most infamous cold cases. But the Montpelier Police Department never truly gave up. Over the years, detectives would periodically pull the file, re-examining evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, hoping a fresh pair of eyes or a new memory might crack the case open. Advances in technology offered glimmers of hope. In the 2000s, the DNA profile was entered into CODIS, the national DNA database, but no matches were found. The killer, it seemed, had never been arrested for a serious crime after Lynn's murder. He had simply vanished, or so it appeared. For Lynn's family, the decades that followed were filled with unanswered questions and unresolved grief. Her children grew up without their mother. Every anniversary of her death was a painful reminder that her killer was still free. The community, too, felt the weight of the unsolved crime. It was a dark chapter in the city's history, a story told in hushed tones, a cautionary tale. Then came the revolution in forensic science, investigative genetic genealogy. This groundbreaking technique uses DNA evidence from a crime scene to search commercial genealogy databases, like 23andMe or Ancestry.com, to find relatives of the unknown suspect. By building family trees from these distant genetic matches, investigators can narrow down the pool of potential suspects from millions to just one. It's the same technology that famously led to the arrest of the Golden State Killer. In 2019, the Montpelier Police Department, in collaboration with the Vermont State Police, decided to give this new method a try. They sent the decades-old DNA sample to a private lab specializing in forensic genealogy. The process was painstaking. Genealogists and detectives worked together, sifting through distant cousins and complex family histories, piecing together a puzzle that spanned generations. They were hunting for a ghost in a family tree. After months of meticulous work, the tree building led them to a potential family. And within that family, one name stood out: Michael Laubier. The name was a shock. Michael Laubier was 48 years old and living in Augusta, Maine, but back in 1993, he had lived in Montpelier. In fact, he had lived in an apartment in the very same building as Lynn Schultz. He was her downstairs neighbor. Laubier had been on the periphery of the initial investigation. He was one of many people spoken to in the early days, but for reasons that remain unclear, he was never considered a primary suspect. He had no significant criminal history that would have put him on law enforcement's radar. After the murder, he eventually moved away, building a life elsewhere, leaving the dark secret of Bar Street behind. Now, with a name, investigators needed to confirm their theory. They needed Laubier's DNA to compare directly with a sample from the crime scene. This is where classic detective work came back into play. Detectives from Vermont traveled to Maine and began a covert surveillance operation. They needed to obtain a sample of Laubier's DNA without him knowing, a process known as collecting abandoned DNA. They watched him, waiting for an opportunity. Finally, they got what they needed, a discarded cigarette butt. The cigarette was sent to the Vermont Forensic Laboratory for testing. The lab expedited the analysis. The detectives, the genealogists, and Lynn's family all held their breath. Was this the moment? Was a 29-year-long nightmare about to end? The results came back. It was a perfect match. The DNA on the cigarette butt was an exact match to the DNA recovered from the crime scene in 1993. They had their man. After nearly 3 decades of silence, the ghost had a name. In May of 2022, law enforcement descended on Michael Laubier's home in Maine. The arrest was quiet, uneventful. The man who neighbors described as a quiet, unassuming person was taken into custody and charged with the murder of Lynn Schultz. The news broke, and the city of Montpelier was stunned. The killer had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. He was the neighbor, the person living just 1 floor below. The arrest brought a profound sense of relief and closure to Lynn's family and the entire community. Her son, who was just a teenager when she was killed, expressed his immense gratitude to the investigators who never gave up. For him, and for so many others, the arrest wasn't just about justice. It was about finally being able to close a painful chapter that had been open for far too long. The case against Michael Laubier is still proceeding through the legal system. He has pleaded not guilty, and like anyone accused of a crime, he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But for the investigators and the community, the DNA match represents a powerful conclusion to a decades-long search. This story is a powerful testament to the persistence of law enforcement and the incredible evolution of forensic science. A crime that seemed unsolvable was cracked open by a combination of old-fashioned detective work and cutting-edge technology. It highlights how no case is ever truly cold, and that for victims and their families, there is always hope for answers, no matter how much time has passed. The shadow over Montpelier has finally begun to lift, and for Lynn Schultz, justice is finally within reach. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into fascinating cases. We'll see you in the next one.